So looking at the next slide, what are the benefits of TLLP? Well, the biggest impact is going to be on the teacher learners themselves. And this makes sense considering TLLP is designed for teacher learners. A majority of the teachers reported an increase in their knowledge and skills, and they also reported improvements in other areas, such as research skills, communication skills, assessment skills, and management skills. Now, student learning benefits. The primary benefit are the teacher learners themselves, but there is a perceived positive benefit on the students as well. And I do want to clarify that TLLP has cautioned against teachers making direct correlations between their changed practice and then an increase on assessment scores. So teachers did use student surveys, formal observations, course enrollment data, suspension data, and then parent and teacher surveys. And they concluded that overall there was a real positive learning outcome for students. And the biggest perceived change for students was their engagement and overall attitude towards learning. And then the last point of sustaining teacher learning the last point is sustaining teacher learning and innovation. And this is really looking at the long-term effects of TLLP. And it's not a formal requirement that teachers who complete the projects continue their project on their own or start a new one once their cohort is complete. However, 98% of former TLLP participants that responded to the survey all said that they continued their learning and development through activities that were actually started within the TLLP framework. And then those were continued in their schools or classrooms in some fashion. And some teachers even went so far as to actually write grants to secure their own funding so that they could continue their projects. So in summary, the effects of TLLP have been long-lasting, far-reaching, and transformative. And those effects are really owed to those three pillars that I spoke about on the last slide: the teacher voice, ongoing support, and collaboration. And when we examine those three pillars with what we've already learned about adult learning in general, we see that there's a lot of overlap. In regards with what we learned about adult learning from slide 1, we saw that in the understanding the perspective of others PowerPoint, which was explained to us by Natalie. Adult learners learn best when there are 6 elements that should happen within adult learning. Self-directed, utilizes past experiences and knowledge, and it's goal-oriented. And those first 3 points are all upheld within TLLP, which allows for teachers to choose and direct their own projects. And then all of the ongoing support and training that teachers get, well, that relates to the next 2 topics in slide 1 about adult learning. Because teachers picked their own topics, all of their training is going to be relevant and oriented to those needs. And it's also going to ensure that it highlights practicality. And then the last bullet point for TLLP, their third pillar, is collaboration. And that's actually the last bullet point in the PowerPoint as well from slide 1. So I think one could easily make the argument that TLLP is as effective as it is because it embeds the same fundamental values that we learned earlier in the presentation are critical to achieve adult learning. And then the last part of the chapter highlights some of the teacher-led projects that have been approved and completed over the last 10 years of TLLP. And they are included, I think, simply to highlight the depth and the range of work that teachers within the different cohorts have chosen to learn and study about. So in chapter 3 on pages 46 to 57, they actually highlight a bunch of different projects, and all the projects that are included include the title, the year it was studied, the number of team members, because remember, almost all of these projects are done within groups as opposed to isolation, the project theme, a description of the project, and the project goals and lessons learned, and then remaining questions after the project is completed. So I just wanted to very briefly touch on a couple of projects that I found that were interesting. The first one, Parents as Partners Volunteer Literacy Program. The team actually trained and mentored different parent volunteers to come into the school and then work with students that needed extra literacy support. The idea being that if parents are really involved in care in their students' education, then students are going to be more involved in their education as well. The second study was linking boys' literacy achievement and interactive whiteboard technology. And this was actually a result of some of the teachers. The team members found that the girls were outperforming their male peers in literacy skills at this age group, and they wanted to see if maybe using interactive smartboards and technology tools could help build the boys' interest and see if it will raise their achievement in those literacy areas. And then the last one is that I found really interesting was using the arts to address issues of social justice, equality, and inclusive education. And in this one, teachers actually integrated different art forms into their core subject matter, like science and social studies and literacy, to actually explore social justice themes. And their hope was to increase student awareness of inequality and justice. So again, this is a very small sample of the projects that are highlighted in chapter 3. And this concludes my discussion and analysis of Chapter 3, Teacher Learning in the TLLP, in the book titled Teacher Learning and Leadership by Ann Lieberman, Carol Campbell, and Anna Yashinka.